What's up, y'all? How we doing? This is the IN Baseball Show. We are back. It has been a little while. We have been away, but we can't wait to break down the playoffs. We are here for the big moment, the time to make it all shine, to make it happen. B, how are you doing? How are you living? You ready to break this thing down?
I'm so excited. We had an exciting regular season, especially the end of it, which we'll get into a little bit. But, division series getting ready to start as soon as the rain passes in Baltimore. I'm excited.
Yeah, we're a little late on the wild card, but that's okay. That gives us just enough time to break it down for the real action for the divisional series to kick off here. We've got the Texas Rangers taking on the Orioles, like you said, here as soon as the rain subsides. We can't wait to see that happen. But first and foremost, B, we had a crazy end to the regular season, like you said. And I think we got to take some time to break it down. Some wild stuff happened. Ronald Acuna had a crazy end. Luis Arise, we've been talking about him all season. Shohei Ohtani, we have to talk about that. So let's break into that, B. What were some of the storylines to end the season that really got you interested, or were ones that you were really eyeing as the season end was coming up?
Well, of course, we have to touch on Otani a little bit before we get into the playoffs. It's unfortunate that his entire career with the Angels, he did not sniff a single playoff game. And, it was solidified earlier in the month when he had, it was discovered he had a torn UCL, and which shut him down for pitching for the remainder of the season. And then about a week or two later, hurt his oblique, and he had left the team. Like middle of September, and he was shut down for the rest of the season, which was really an indictment of what the Angels have had to go through for the past who knows how many years. It's just a failure on all parts that they had the two greatest players in the game today, most likely, and it's just not. It just didn't work out for them, and now
Well,
they're gonna have to. They're gonna
and
have to lose Otani in free agency
And
now.
the funniest thing too is it's not like a lot of teams when they have like two of the best players or whatever, right? You're like, okay, well, we have like two good bats, right? Or we have a good pitcher or whatever. This guy is the best at both of those things, and they still couldn't figure it out. You had the best pitcher in the game right now, and you had debatably the best hitter in the game right now. And then you also had Mike Trout, who's a perennial all-star and fantastic player, Silver Slugger, Gold Glover type guy. It's like, what's happening over there? That just makes no sense. The ineptitude continues to run deep there, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we said, like Mike Trout only has like one playoff game or like one playoff series in his pocket from who knows when. Does not have a win in the playoffs yet. It's the Angels have to figure out how they. It's gonna have to be a rebuild now because it's like you lost your best player. Mike Trout is still there. He's gonna stay loyal to the Angels, which hopefully at some point he'll do a Damian Lillard and figure out that he's not going to do a lot in Anaheim. But the Angels are in a tough spot. They traded away a lot of their farm system to try to buy into this season, and it didn't work out. And so now they're going to have to start from scratch and figure out what the move is.
And it comes time to pay the piper, because this is something that we talked about early on in the season when we were like, are they going to be buyers? Are they going to be sellers? And they ended up holding Ohtani and being buyers. And you're like, okay, like you guys really don't even know if this guy's going to stay. And now it's almost the worst case scenario for them, where he not only is he probably not going to be back, now he's also hurt. They've damaged the
Yeah.
goods. Like, it's a tough break for everybody involved. And you know
And
what? In one case, though, it's going to be interesting to see where he goes to.
yeah, and hopefully he'll still get paid, a similar amount as to if he were going to be healthy pitching next year, because he's going to exclusively be a DH now. Now that he's going to have Tommy John surgery.
Right.
But he should still get paid heavily, with hopes that he'll come back and still be the best pitcher in the majors in 2025.
And it's such a funny thing because you're like, what does a contract like that even look like? I think that the MLB doesn't even know. We continue to like ponder, like, what is this type of deal going to look like? Because, this is what these deals look like for these elite hitters. You can go and look at Bryce Harper, any of these huge 10 to 13-year deals that have been kind of, laid on these big time hitters over the last few years. And I mean, pitchers aren't any slouches to, big contract money too. You see guys like Verlander who continues to cash in on huge contracts. What does that look like when you take the guy that's the best at both of those things and say, yeah, he's going to do both of those for you? Like, are we going to double contract this up? Is this going to be just outrageously more money than anybody else? I don't know, but I can't wait to see it play out. It's going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah, that'll be entertaining. This will be one of the more entertaining free agency windows to watch for that alone. There's only so much that you can pay someone with, luxury tax and everything, all the rules around that. But that being said, there is no doubt in my mind that he will be the most or the highest paid player for the next 20 years.
It's so funny too, because in baseball the contracts are just so, I shouldn't say outrageous, but I think a lot of people see the dollars and think, oh my gosh, it's so much. But when you start to break it down into yearly accruals, it's not outrageous. Like basketball has definitely gotten up there. Football is also starting to get up there with kind of how quarterback contracts look. But when you look at the thing that always surprises me most or interests me most is when you're signing. So in the MLB, the fact that they already have the longest average time to be able to reach free agency, having to have, your 3 years of team control on your rookie contract and then your 3 years of arbitration. And then you finally hit free agency in year 7 or whatever. And so these guys have to wait all this time, but then they get signed for 13-year deals. And it's that's always what shocks me the most is that teams can actually realistically think that as good as some of these guys are, that they're going to be slugging like they do in year 12 and 13 at age 38. Because the first big one that I ever saw was Miguel Cabrera. That was that, he was one of the very first, outrageously huge contracts at the time that everybody was like, oh, this is baseball money. And now, that's going to look like peanuts compared to what some of these guys are going to sign for. So that's definitely going to be the most
signed for.
Yeah, what Juan Soto just signed for. What was that again? Outrageous. 13.
It was absolutely outrageous.
Yeah.
Let me figure this out real quick. He signed $23 million for a year.
Oh yeah.
Because he still has another year of arbitration,
right,
before he hits free agency.
Arbitration, man, we'll get into that sometime later. But arbitration might be the secret key to the contracts in the NFL. But that's for a different show, not this one. So we got some other news in the works, or not in the works, but some other outrageous performances from the regular season that we have to talk about. Ronald Acuna, 40 home runs, 70 stolen bags this season. What did you make of that performance this year, B?
That is one of the best seasons we've seen in some time. And purely for the fact that nobody else has had a 40-70 season. I believe the closest has been Alex Rodriguez in 98. But we're in new ground. We're in a new era with what Ronald Acuna is doing, especially 2 or 3 years after a torn ACL, and he's doing all of this. He's back in the swing of things. He's really hit his potential from what he was hyped to be during his rookie year, and hopefully this means a stronger performance in the playoffs this year for the Braves. But it's unreal, definite MVP in my book. They were definitely making a show of it as well when he stole that 70th bag. But because it's history, nobody's done it before. So definitely big ups to Ronald Acuna for that.
Well, when we talked about this, that team has been so strong, and they're strong outside of him, but they're made so much better with him. And it's one of those kind of like elite players kind of can lift up the rest of your roster. And he's definitely done that. To hit 40-70 is outrageous and something you don't see. And so it is cool that they played that up, because he has been fantastic. And I think that as you move forward, as he's still kind of a younger player, he's going to continue to do some outrageous feats like this, and I can't wait to see it kind of play out. And this is going to be one where, we talked about how good they were, and with how well he's playing, they could be running straight into the pennant. So like in winning this World Series, and you probably know a little bit more than I as a very casual watcher, but they look like the best team, and like I don't know that anybody else can stop them at the moment. So what do you take it when you look at that team in general?
I'd pretty much echo what you're saying. If you're gonna look at like across the league, like a strong team, this is probably the most complete team in the major leagues on paper. Especially with the way they played this season, they've hit for power. They had two of the leading home run hitters in the National League with Acuna and Matt Olson. They have pitching. They have the leading strikeout getter in Spencer Strider. They have the speed again with Acuna, with Ozzie Albies. They have defense all across the board. It's a complete team. They just cannot beat themselves. They have to let other teams beat them. And if any other team can beat them, it may be the Phillies, but we'll get to that point when we get there. But the Braves are definitely the team to beat in this playoff race right now.
And that's I think by far the matchup I'm most excited about coming up in the divisional series. So, and like you said, that's going to be one we're going to break down here in a second. So I can't wait for that one. Also, we talked about it. Luis Ariz, batting champ, finishes the regular season 354. I know it's not the mythical 400, but we talked about that a lot. It's a myth for a reason, because that just doesn't happen. But 354 is also a myth and doesn't really happen for an entire season. So what an amazing outing for him this year. What did you make of what he was able to put together at the end of the season?
Yeah, baseball is the one sport where you can be successful about 30% of the time, and you are considered one of the best in the sport. And Luis Ariz was more successful than that. And he was 354. He was hitting 35% of the time. Just unreal from him. He was when he was in Minnesota, I was definitely scared to pitch to him because we knew how good he was with the bat, and he's only gotten better in Miami. He did kind of slow down with the ankle injury towards the end of the season, and he didn't have a great wild card series. But not to take away from everything he accomplished this season, he was unreal with the bat.
It is such a shame that baseball is more a game of runs, and no pun intended, not like runs on the scoreboard, but like runs as in streaks. It's way more of a game of runs. A lot of the times it's really tough for these teams to kind of pick it up in the playoffs, and sometimes they do just kind of fall off the face of the earth, and it's tough to watch because you would have really liked to see Miami go a little bit further, but like we just talked about a second ago, like we might talk about here in a little bit, or we will talk about it here in a little bit, Philly's looking pretty good too. So we won't discredit what they're doing quite yet, but man, Luis Ariz, what a good season. Can't wait to keep watching that happen. I hope he does it again next year, and we get to keep talking about his prowess at the bat, or with the bat in his hands, for a long, long time. So I can't wait to see it. The next one we have, obviously, we're going to break into the wild card recap here in a minute, and kind of the races that came down to deciding the wild card at the end of the season. But first, I want to touch on one thing specifically: the 3 top payrolls in the league, the New York Yankees, the New York Mets, the San Diego Padres, all missed the playoffs. What does that say for them? Should they be worried? Is this just a fluke? I know we talked about this a lot with, New York teams, the Yankees and Mets specifically, with how much money they'd spent and how the Mets were sellers. They were out of this thing very, very early. What does that mean for these teams and maybe even the landscape of the league as a whole?
Uh, I feel like it's definitely one of those things where, at least for the New York teams, it definitely wasn't fluky in my opinion. They just didn't show up. They didn't play to their abilities. Of course, you had injuries across the board, but they just weren't as strong as the teams in their division, as well as they weren't strong as they were in previous years. At least for the Yankees, for the Mets, that just didn't come together at all. They lost the step. It feels like the wild card series last year kind of broke them, and they just never recovered from that. Uh, and when you spend that much money and you don't if you don't perform to the best of your abilities, it's going to set you back a little bit. And Steve Cohen was very upfront with that. Like, he doesn't expect to compete next year. It's going to be kind of a building year for 2025 for them. And it may be for the Yankees as well. They still have a bunch of young guys that are trying to get acclimated to the league. And you just signed Judge to like a big time contract, so he'll be around for a little bit. So if you can get like a couple star players from free agency this year, maybe in 1 to 2 years you're back on the map. But for the Padres, I feel like that more than anything was fluke performances, because they still have, like, I would put them maybe, like, on paper, I would still say they're better than the Diamondbacks, even though the Diamondbacks had a really good year, especially a really good finish to the season. But we saw with the last couple of weeks of the season, the Padres really started to fight for that wild card spot. But they just dug themselves a hole way too deep. And, the offense didn't figure it out in time. The pitching, you had Blake Snell, who will be up there with the Cy Young. He would still perform very well. But the Padres, I feel like they're still in a good spot for next year. As long as they don't lose too many people, if they can start out how they finished this at the end of September, they'll be in a good spot.
That's music to our guy Mike Burland's ears, who Mike is busy punching the clock today, could not join us. But, shout out to Mike and his Padres. We are hoping to see, a resurgence from these Padres eventually. Well, maybe not me specifically because, being in Colorado and whatnot, but I'm sure he is. So, we're rooting for him, or he's rooting for him. But that brings up the teams that didn't struggle, though, the teams that went down to the wire to get into these wild card races. So what did you make of the AL and NL wild card races when it really came down to the last couple weeks of the regular season?
That September baseball was insane this year. First, we can start with the AL. The real division to watch was the AL West. You had three teams fighting for that division crown and the two open wild card spots, as the Rays had already pretty much had it sealed. And I gotta say Seattle was kind of unlucky to not make it in. They were 43-28 during the second half of the season. That was the second best record in the American League, only behind Baltimore, which, they did what they had to do. It's outside of the one game where they had to win and the Rangers just came in and, secured their spot in the playoffs, which was kind of tough. And once again, Seattle unlucky because they had a better record than the Minnesota Twins, who won the AL Central. So that was definitely a trend that we were watching throughout the year. But it was tough for them. Good for Houston, who started off really, really trying to figure it out and ended up winning the AL West. And then, Texas sneaking into I believe it was the second wild card spot or the third wild card spot.
I think so.
So it was definitely entertaining on the AL side. Within the AL West, Toronto also was thinking in. They treaded water. They just like figured it out between. They let the AL West figure it out between them because that was an insane stretch. They had all the AL West teams playing each other for the final weeks of the season up top. That was
Yeah.
entertaining baseball to
Yeah.
watch.
Good schedule making for sure. They figured that
Yeah,
one out. They had some crystal balls for that one for sure. Yeah,
yeah,
so it was an exciting way to end it, and that actually leads us right into the wild card recap. So for starters,
right.
we had the Texas Rangers taking down Tampa Bay. Game 1, 4-0. Game 2, 7-1. Not really a contest. What did you make about that matchup, B?
Well, it was the Tampa Bay offense really had to carry them in that series, and in a similar situation to last year when they went to Cleveland for the wild card series, the offense straight up did not show up for the two games that they played, and it was really their downfall. And you had to improve with your three best starting pitchers out for the rest of the season. They wouldn't be able to help during this playoff push. And the Texas took advantage of it. They do have the best offense in the major leagues, and they took advantage of the Rays' weakness, which was their pitching right now, and the offense just did not show up for the Rays.
Yeah, it just didn't click for them, and that's kind of the weird thing about baseball too. No matter like how you come into the ending with some sort of momentum or lack thereof, sometimes it's when the lights come on, it just flips the switch. As a Rockies fan from, a long time, and I hate having to always bring this back to Rockies stuff because look, everybody watching at home, give me a little bit of slack, okay? I don't get a lot of Rockies playoffs. So when they come in after having like a great end of the season a few years back and then put up like one single run against the Brewers in a 3-game series, like I know this feeling. I know this feeling of getting absolutely swamped 11-1 in a two, in a 2-game spread. So I feel for them. That's a tough look, especially when things just don't come together. But there's always next year, and hopefully they can be back in it because they had another great start to the season that pushed them to where they ended up being. So can't wait to see it all play out again next year. The next matchup, not mashup, that we saw was Minnesota taking down Toronto. This one, not really that close either. I mean, the games were a little bit closer, but all in all, 3-1, 2-0. Not a lot of production for Toronto. What did we see in that one, B?
The story was Toronto not being able to knock in runners in scoring position. They piled up the hits on Minnesota, but the clutch pitching for the Twins really came through, and the Blue Jays. I was about to say the Brewers. The Blue Jays just couldn't figure it out with runners in scoring position. They got the one run, but they had more than enough opportunities to blow the game open on the offensive side in both games, and they just couldn't figure it out. So, props to Minnesota. They figured it out at home. They got their first playoff win in what, eight? Their first playoff series win in 18 years. Their first playoff win in 11 years. So they're moving on up. They're going to see Houston now. That'll be a fun series to watch as well.
That'll be another good one because, man, you know me. You know me. I don't want to see Houston go any further. I don't want to see it happen. So, yeah, I'm right there with you. That's going to be a good one for sure. It was interesting to see the next matchup that we had in the wild card, Arizona taking down Milwaukee in kind of a high-powered series. 6-3, 5-2, Arizona putting up 11-2. How does something like that happen, B? Are they the real deal? Are they going to keep pushing this or what's up? The 6th seed in the NL.
That NL wild card race was insane, by the way, because you had the Cubs holding at least like the first wild card spot and then going like 9-21 to end the season to fall out. It was one of the collapses of the century, I will say, and I enjoyed every second of it. But getting my bias out of the way, the Diamondbacks did very well to come up and take the last wild card spot. And, in this series in particular, it was once again the Milwaukee Brewers not figuring out how to hold a lead in the playoffs. They've had this issue, most notably in the 2019 wild card game against Washington when they gave up a 2-run lead, I think it was a 2-run lead in the bottom of the eighth to lose that game. And once again, both games in this series, Milwaukee had a lead early, and Arizona bats woke up and pounced on the pitching, which was supposed to be the strong point of Milwaukee's team. So, a lot of fun young bats on Arizona's team. I think that series with Los Angeles will be very entertaining. We'll get to that in a little bit. But it was a gutsy performance from Arizona away from home. Probably the upset of the season so far. Definitely upset of the wild card series.
Yeah, absolutely. And they came out, like you said, when bats come alive, it becomes hard to kind of overcome. Milwaukee scoring 3-2, as we talked about with the other teams that dropped wild card games, they did not show up at all, scored a combined 2 runs. And here, Milwaukee, put up a decent 5 and just couldn't control it. So it's funny how that goes. The last matchup we have to break down of the wild card, though, Philadelphia taking down Miami. Game 1, 4-1. Game 2, 7-1. Another big mismatch there. Miami's bats, like we talked about a little bit earlier, just didn't come alive. Philly looking pretty good, though. What did you see in that one?
I think that Philly just outclassed Miami on every side of the ball, and that just comes with the experience that Philadelphia had. Definitely from last year going to the World Series, it was a similar story. They look very similar to how they pushed to the World Series last year. If we look at Miami, it was very inexperienced baseball showing up. You could tell not a lot of people that had that playoff experience, and it showed a lot on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. They just couldn't overcome, the arms. I believe they had Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler for the Phillies. The starters had fantastic games for them, and the offense just blowing it open when it mattered most with runners in scoring position. So, props to the Phillies. It was a tough matchup for Miami, but I don't think they have anything to hang their head down about, because that was just like a mismatch.
You just came up against a team that's just stronger than you right now. And Miami was also a team that was probably playing over their head a little bit most of the season, especially with how, they were hitting the bat, talked about our eyes, all those type of things. So definitely, as much as there wasn't really super close matchups in this wild card, and the storyline being that all 4 teams go down on the same day is like, yeah, all right, I guess that's kind of how it's gonna go. But in a good sense, in a more positive outlook sense, I think that means that these divisional series are gonna be just bathed in blood, because this is gonna get freaking hectic. It's going to get crazy. The first matchup we're starting with, which has unfortunately still been in a rain delay. Let me look and see if it's still delayed. Yeah,
It's still delayed. First pitch at 2:15 Eastern.
2:15 Eastern. Okay, so anybody that's tuning in to, kill some time before first pitch, this is the place to be for sure. 2:15 Eastern is where you're going to want to see. We'll probably take you up to like literally probably right before that as we break down. You're going to probably have just enough time to get a snack and then sit down and settle in for first pitch. So that's going to be a good one. But yeah, so the first matchup we have, Baltimore, the number 1 seed in the AL, taking on the 5 seed Texas Rangers. What's your breakdown of this one be? What can we project for this one moving forward?
Well, nobody expected Baltimore to be the number one seed in the AL. I thought they would be a good team. I thought they would at least get wild card this year. 100 wins was not on the docket for anybody for Baltimore, and it's fantastic. They definitely deserve it. It's the first time in 7 years that they're making the playoffs. They're looking to win their first AL pennant in 40 years, and they got a team to do it. They're not gonna blast the ball out of the ballpark too much. Definitely not at the rate that the Rangers are. With their league leading offense. But they definitely have players that will hit for power and get the clutch hits when they need it the most. That's how they won most of their games, is the timely hitting, and also the pitching. The pitching has been unreal. There's going to be a couple good game 1, game 2 matchups with young pitchers for the Baltimore Orioles in this one, which will be very fun to watch. It's gonna be up to Texas to try to figure out how to make a dent in the young pitchers, like Grayson Rodriguez, and I believe today is Kyle Bradish, who will be definitely in the Cy Young conversation. But yeah, fun game. I think this game 1 will be important for Baltimore because they're going to be going up against Andrew Heaney. He had about a 4 ERA in the regular season. So if they're going to jump on any of Texas's pitchers, it's going to have to be Andrew Heaney here in game 1.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. Because kind of like we talked, or like you just said just a second ago, this Rangers offense is one that can kind of pop off at any given moment. So if you're going to keep pace with them and maybe take a nice lead in this series, this is going to be a huge one, because there's other times where you're not going to be able to jump on their pitcher and they're going to be able to jump on yours. So you're going to want to make sure that you take this game if you're Baltimore, for sure. That's right where I would stand too.
Yeah.
So that's going to be another really interesting one.
Yeah, and Baltimore has a lot of young guys. It's got to keep that in mind. This is going to be a lot of their first experiences in the playoffs. Where meanwhile, with Texas, you have the likes of Marcus Semien and Corey Seager, who have been here before. They also have a lot of young guys, but they do have veteran leadership that has been there before. Corey Seager had one of the best postseasons of all time in 2020. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be youth and experience, but a consistently good baseball team that have performed both first and second half throughout the season versus, a team that has a potent offense and a little bit of playoff experience on them. So definitely one of the series to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was trying to find the series odds here, but I'm not seeing them. It looks like for game 1, obviously, Baltimore a -130 on the money line here. It looks like even the run line is super high. I think it was said it was 8. I wonder if markets are still open for that one because it's delayed. That's a question that I don't know off the top of my head, but that'll be an interesting draw for sure. They might have taken them down, but anyway. Oh well. All right. Next matchup that we are breaking down here. The Houston Astros taking on the Minnesota Twins, the 2nd seed and the 3rd seed in the AL. B, tell me that they can take down the Astros. I don't want to see the Astros dancing again. I just don't. I can't take it anymore.
You know what? I will, just looking off of second half records alone, I will say it's possible. It is possible. Now, Houston, the number 2 seed and the winner of the AL West, so they will have home field advantage for this. That being said, Minnesota went very quiet 40-29 in the second half of the season. They have the pitching there. The big question for them is going to be the offense. Now, the offense has been hit or miss throughout the season for them. Very inconsistent. Carlos Correa is going to be huge if he can get off the blocks. that's going to be a big bet for them. Royce Lewis was big for them in the wild card series. He had a couple of home runs, so his bat will be huge. But yeah, if they can, the mission is keeping up with Houston's offense. If you can keep it a close game and get it to the make it a pitcher's duel, you have a good shot. You have a good shot there.
And that's what I love to hear because, we're not fans of the Astros here. Sorry, any of the Astros fans in the crowd. No, I'm just kidding. But this should be a really good one because as much as we like to hate the Astros, it's for good reason because they're really good. Even with the, controversies that surround them that turn people away from them, they have one of the better lineups and one of the best pitching staffs out there. Justin Verlander taking the mound in this one is going to be another rock star. He's always playing really, really well. 3.22 ERA right there. So, whenever he takes the mound, it's a tough day for the other lineup for sure. So this is going to be one that I can't wait to see play out. And we all kind of know which way I'm rooting, but so
and another thing to mention for that as well is that the last time Houston's the defending champions here, the last time that we've had back-to-back champions was 98 to 2000 with the Yankees. So it hasn't been done in 23 years. So that's something to keep. It's one of the hardest things to do is go back to back. And the Houston has been to, I believe, 6 or 7 straight championship series, league championship series, that is. So, I wouldn't be surprised if they do go to the LCS. It will be a very tough matchup, seeing who they go up against, whether it is Texas or Baltimore.
Yeah, absolutely. Minnesota is going to have to take out the communicating wristbands on the glove or whatever. So, make sure that they don't catch any of those signs there. Sorry. We're obligated to make one sign stealing joke. All right. That's it for Houston and Minnesota. Now we head into the NL where the Phillies are taking on the Braves in what's probably going to be the best matchup of this divisional series, at least until we maybe get into the next one. But yeah, really close series right here. It looks like, what time does this one kick off? 4:07 Mountain. So 6 o'clock Eastern, it looks like. So this is going to be another good one in kind of prime time there. What are you making of this Phillies Braves matchup?
Direct rematch of last year's NLDS, and I'm absolutely loving it because I think it'll play out to be a kind of similar series. But I think, of course, Atlanta probably has the edge here slightly, just because how strong they've been on like every side of the ball. Spencer Strider, even though has like a 3 ERA, he's a strikeout wizard. And just going down that pitching line, it's insane. And then the offense, like we can't talk enough about this Braves offense from top to bottom. Orlando Arcia is your 9 hitter, and that's saying something. Like Kevin Pillar hasn't had his best season, but like this is still a dangerous offense top to bottom. Any one of these bats can get to you. Meanwhile, for the Phillies, they'll want to get back to Nola and Wheeler as soon as possible. They have Ranger Suarez starting this game. And, the offense has been showing up. The offense has woken up. Trey Turner's bat is back. Thank the Lord. He's back to his World Baseball Classic form, which is fun to see for that team. And it's just from top to bottom. You had Alec Boehm and Bryson Stott break out. I still find it really funny that you have, Bryson Stott, Alec Boehm, and Trey Turner on your team, and you still have Kyle Schwarber batting leadoff. Very funny to me. But Kyle Schwarber, he'll either home run or get out, but you don't want to ignore that bat. Despite what the average is telling you, his OPS is definitely up there. And Bryce Harper, of course. How can we not talk about Bryce Harper? 2 very dangerous offenses. It's gonna be fun to see how the pitching responds. We could have a couple of shootouts in this series, but I feel like it'll be very close.
It's gonna be a good one for sure, and I can't wait to watch it happen. This is gonna be a big time matchup between some big time teams, and it's gonna be a good one for sure. So the last matchup we have on the agenda here, the Arizona Diamondbacks taking on the LA Dodgers, another team that is not a friend of the show here. Um, so Kershaw taking the mound, taking on this Diamondbacks team. What are we going to make of what this Dodgers team can do against the Diamondbacks? Or are the Diamondbacks going to be the team that's walking into the championship series? What do you see on this one?
This is actually gonna be my sleeper pick for a series of the division series, and I will tell you why here. So Los Angeles had the second best, or not the second best, the best record in the National League for the second half of the season. I believe they were like 5 games ahead of Atlanta for that, and it was definitely 100% thanks to they have one of the best offenses in the league. You know, you have Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman and Will Smith playing out of their mind. Uh, just that offense, top to bottom. Once again, one of the most dangerous offenses. JD Martinez up there too. But that being said, the pitching in particular is at its weakest it's been in some time for Los Angeles, especially in the bullpen. Now you have Clayton Kershaw going today, since he's broken his curse, whatever curse he had in the playoffs, and actually won it in 2020. Uh, he'll definitely be a formidable opponent. And but outside of that, Tony Gonsolin didn't have his best year. You're gonna have Lance Lynn, whose fastball has been susceptible to getting taken deep throughout the season. It's the pitching. This is a pitching staff that Arizona can definitely take advantage of if their bats are on. Kind of in a similar spot to the Milwaukee series, how they were able to put together runs at the right times. So if they're able to chase, the more quality starting pitchers out early and get to the bullpen, it could be dangerous hours for the Los Angeles defense. I don't think the offense has anything to worry about. So we could have a lot of shootouts in this series as well.
That's going to be a good one. The Dodgers staring down the scary hours. Sorry, I had to make the Drake reference after the week he's had. Yeah. So anyway, another interesting series. This is going to be such a good divisional series from all these teams because of all the things that we've been talking about leading up to this playoffs. This has been one of the more interesting, or I shouldn't say more interesting, but one of the more like groundbreaking seasons in the MLB for a little while, with guys playing as well as they have, records being broken, storylines playing out the way they are. And now it's all coming down to these last 8 teams. It's going to be a good one, and I can't wait to see it all play out. So that does it for our divisional series breakdown for the MLB playoffs. We are still kind of molding over how we're going to approach the last piece of this season. We might do one more show here, just to leave you guys off with some good feelings before the final series comes down to it, the World Series even. And I just can't wait to see it happen, B. It's going to be a good one.
It's gonna be fun. I'm excited. I'm gonna be sitting up watching baseball all day today. It's gonna be fun times.
It is gonna be a good one for sure. It's gonna be a really good week with a lot of good baseball. I can't wait to see it play out. B, do you have any parting words for the folks at home?
I feel like we covered it all. It should be a fun divisional series. Hopefully, we get a couple of 4 or 5 game series and like the wild card series where everything was a sweep. They should be a little more entertaining this week. But yeah, hope y'all are watching, paying attention. It's getting real interesting.
It's going to be a good one. And for everybody watching at home, make sure you check us out, importantnonsets.com. That's how you can get all of our work, all of our betting stuff, all of our fantasy football stuff, any of the baseball stuff, all of that good jazz. You can get it in there. That's also how you join our Discord. For the $3 tier, you get into our Discord as a member. You can ask the guys anything from your baseball picks, from your football picks, to your fantasy picks, to your guillotine picks, all that stuff and everything in between. So definitely check us out there. And you know what? If you want to support us, you can hit us up on the store, get any of your IN merch, promo code BASE to support the baseball team here. We really appreciate that. And yeah, I think that about does it. Happy swinging to everybody out there. Can't wait to see the games play out. And until next time, good night, good luck.